Hi, I'm Dave Whitson. I'd like to point out right from the beginning that I am in favor of recycling.
Prove it.
I previously taught at the Overlake School in Redmond, and I'm currently teaching at the Tesseract School in Phoenix. It's a brand new high school. We're adding one grade each year, so this is the first year of the 11th grade. There are 18 11th graders, and I am teaching 11th grade history, 11th grade literature, and an elective class called Life, Death, and Immortality. I don't know which challenge is greater, being in Sheldon's position of trying to explain sort of human behavior or trying to help high schoolers explain or understand, make sense of high school behavior, because you know, I can really only speak to the circumstances I'm in and what it's like to try to extend Becker to high schoolers and to have it be more utilitarian in purpose than anything else. I want it to be a tool that helps them make sense of their own lives, their own what is meaningful to them, and then the world around them as they see it. And you know, for high school, if you can recall, there is hyper-intensive meaning at the high school level, right? Where you sit at lunch matters a great deal. Who is in your prom group matters an exceptional amount. Human relationships are all-consuming. The person that you are hanging out with one day, if you're not hanging out with them the next day, what does that mean? What does that say about who you are? But then beyond that, I'm not just a high school teacher. I'm at expensive private high schools, and that is its own subgroup. You know, at Overlake, it's a $21,000 a year high school. My current school is $16,000 a year. So if your parents are sending you to that school, there are expectations attached. And the expectation in particular is that you will succeed. And succeed obviously means a lot of different things, but succeed means you will succeed academically. You will succeed in getting into a great college. You will succeed in making something of your life to justify this parental sacrifice that goes into putting you into this school. And most of all, you will succeed having to acknowledge every step of the way that you really aren't responsible for your success. You happened to win the lottery. You were born into fortunate circumstances. Unlike all of these other people who really have to work for it, you were put into a school where you have teachers who know your name and care about you, and you had all the resources available to make learning possible. And so, frankly, you're only responsible if you fail. And in any other circumstance, you are just, you got the lucky roll of the dice. And so if you experience any pain or discomfort or unhappiness, it is, you can't say anything about that. You can't express it because you would be ungrateful, you would have no sense of perspective, you would be the worst kind of spoiled brat complaining because how dare you be unhappy with where you are, look at all of these other people who have far better reason to be unhappy. And so I think that they carry a particular burden. You know, if you could choose your burden, I think you would choose that burden. But it is its own burden, and all the more burdensome because it is something they feel they can't talk about. And so I think that makes the concept of self-esteem something that is in many ways especially elusive to them. It is hard for them to feel valuable when their accomplishments are meaningless, and they feel like what they are pursuing is ever more difficult to grasp because every day they're told it's harder to get into college, college spots it's more competitive than ever, it's more expensive than ever, so your parents are going to be sacrificing even more than they would have been 10 years ago. It's a heavy burden, and that's why I think these issues are so important and so relevant to high schoolers, and why I think it's important for us to be doing this work to make Becker not just something that's studied to some extent at the college level, but that it's integrated more fully into the high school level. Now, in my case, I'm doing it most explicitly in an elective class. What's interesting is we floated a number of electives to the students last year that they could sign up for, and out of all the electives offered, Life, Death, Immortality blew away the others in terms of student interest. By the end of this year, I will have 2/3 of the students take this semester class, and we're looking at life, death, immortality from a variety of angles. We start with what do we believe? Well, we start with sort of a historical survey. That's pretty quick, though. But then we jump into what do we believe, and primarily look at it through the perspective of the world's major religions and philosophies. So we had a Buddhist monk come in and talk to us about what Buddhists think about what is a good life, and what does death represent, and what happens after you die. And so we spent a week thinking about what he told us, processing it. Then we had a Jewish rabbi come in, and we repeat the process. And so we study each of these worldviews in isolation and then also comparatively, looking at where they disagree, where they concur. From there, we look at how we act with regards to death. And so we'll have a hospice worker come in and talk about end-of-life scenarios. And we, in being in Phoenix, we have the good fortune of being near Ted Williams' frozen head at Alcor. And so we have the ability to go to the cryogenics and talk about the making ourselves into frozen burritos, and so we have that option. And so we look at all these ways that we try to act in ways to distance ourselves from death. And then Becker will make an appearance, sort of the psychology behind death, in the final part of the class, not quite as a deus ex machina, but as a fitting capstone on what we studied. I specifically did not lead off with Becker. The things that make Becker, the ideas of Becker and terror management theory attractive to high schoolers also makes it a threat in that it's such a nice, neat, and tidy system in a way that I think there's a temptation among high schoolers to accept it too all-consumingly and to not question it, to not think critically about it. So I kind of like the word you use, the bloodhound approach. We just have a little more time in this class for them to sniff it out, and I can sort of set it in front of them, but they will have had a couple of months, several months, to have processed the ideas on their own, to come to some of their own ideas and conclusions about it, and really have a wealth of information at their fingertips to then assess Becker on its own merits and determine to what extent it meets what they've come to and in what ways it challenges it, but to really have the intellectual foundation to engage it in a fair fight. So that's what I'm doing currently, and then you have the background in the packet if you want to see more about what I've done prior to this.
What would be your elevator speech when you're telling someone that you address ideas like Ernest Becker's ideas in high school, and their response is, are they ready for that yet? What's your elevator speech, the one that takes 30 seconds or a minute?
Sort of bristle at the question, are they ready for it? These kids, as long as they're in high school, it's Shakespeare, are they ready for it? Calculus, are they ready for it? And they are totally fed up with hearing they're not ready for it. They're 16, damn well they're ready for it. So that's my attitude. I mean, they say they're ready, they're cocky, they're ready to take on the world. Well, let's throw the world at them. And if they stumble, then we're there to help guide them through it. That's our job as teachers. But I don't want to hold back. I want to, if they want to jump for it, then let's hold it up here and let's have them jump for it. And if they don't reach it, we'll put the stepladder out.
In one session, we were talking about the possibilities of making Becker more useful to you, and I'm very impressed to hear that your lawyer read Denial of Death in high school, and I think given what we know about the reading competency of high school and college students these days, and grad school students these days, I think that's a real challenge. And I was excited by the ideas in that first group about learning packages that might be useful to you, and Laurie and Mel were in that group and reminded us of the practicalities of having to sell it in a way that that administrators would accept it. But if we set that aside for a minute, I'm just wondering, what would be helpful to you? What kinds of things do you use? Most of you who spoke said that you introduced Becker with the film or just with your own style of presentation and the materials that you selected to tell them about. Maybe you had some handouts or something. But if you could just give us some concrete ideas of things that from the resources here and the people who are involved, what would be a good learning package that you could use? What would it include?
I like to think modular and sort of isolate key ideas. So what does Becker tell us about self-esteem? And to have a nice little synopsis and to have critical passages isolated from Becker on the subject, to have that all in a nice little 5-6 pages, that sets up a 2-3 day really focused conversation on the nature of self-esteem. Go on down the list, isolating the key themes, key ideas from Becker. Because like you said, for high school students to go and read multiple chapters from Denial of Death, it's going to be challenging. I don't know that I really want to talk about anality with 15-year-olds. So, there are certainly things that I'm not thrilled about getting into. But if we can isolate the short passages, critical chunks, I think that makes it a lot more accessible. We can't think in terms of a Becker syllabus because that is a pipe dream in most schools. But we can think in terms of, I have an extra day here, or I have I'm reading a novel that fits these themes, and so I have an entryway there to connect to certain ideas from Becker, but only if the prep is minimal and the quotes are accessible and it's all boiled down to a really condensed package.